Hello everyone, I am the Angry Child and welcome to
User
this
joined your
video
channel.
of where I'm going to be explaining everything about one of my ships on Star Trek Online. It is a science character, it's Federation, and essentially this ship is a PvP build. Now I'm making this video because I PvP people quite regular on this game and I get a lot of people saying, oh, what you've been running on that ship, what space set you got, all that. And I get really tired of just, posting it to them and trying to explain, why I did it. So essentially, I'm making this video to explain everything about this starship and why it's built the way it is. Now, I'm not quite sure what you would class it as. Personally, I would class it as a shield and hull tank, but you could class it as a torpedo board or a feedback ship. It really depends. It has a lot of various things on it that make it as good as it is, but I'll let you be the judge of what you want to call it. Just gonna quickly transwarp to Solar System a minute. So what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to be going over all of the equipment that's on the ship, the weapons, consoles, and such. I'll be going over my skill tree, specializations, and the traits that I use. Now, this video, you can feel free to copy the stuff that's on the ship, or if you're a new player, it might give you some ideas of what you might want to do. Even for existing players, you might be wanting to build a new ship. In this case, this might be the video for you, but if not, it should be very informative and give you some ideas on what you might want to do with your ship. So, to start off, let's just open up our menu here and I'm going to show you all the stuff that's on the ship. So, I'll just start off with the weapons. Now, this is a torpedo boat. It does have 4 torpedoes on board and it has 2 energy weapons. Now, on the front, I have a standard plasma torpedo, which you can just put any torpedo there you want, really, as long as it's plasma based. I have the particle emission torpedo, which is an excellent torpedo in my
User left
opinion.
your channel.
And I also have the Omega Plasma torpedo. Now, the Omega Plasma torpedo is quite important because this setup allows you to fire a torpedo every half a second on the front of your ship, which is very important, and I'll explain why in just a moment. On the back, we have the corrosive plasma torpedo you get from the Lobby store. We also have the plasmatic biomatter turret, and we have a omnidirectional plasma beam array. Now, the 2 energy weapons on the back, they're just a choice of your own, really. I just put them on because I'd run out of plasma torpedoes, and I wanted to have an energy weapon. Because of my playstyle, I like to have 360 weapons as energy because that allows you to use the weapons as a target lock. Let's see. I'm using the Sol Defense set on my ship mainly because of the 3-part set that you get. It gives you some really good strength, and it's a good set to have for a science or even a tactical, in my opinion. Now, the set itself it's pretty good. What it is, I've only got it up to Mark 14, very rare at the moment. I am planning to get all this stuff to ultra rare if I can. A couple of my things are already epic and ultra rare, like consoles and such, but like I say, I am getting there. The bonus that you get from having this set on is quite important because the 2-piece set gives you plus 35 and 25 to kinetic damage resistance and for your energy damage resistance, which is very, very good for this build because you want this build to be as strong as possible. The third ability gives you basically just an instant hull heal that can be shared amongst your friends. It's a nice ability to have, and I call it a panic button. Pardon me there. Yes, I like to have what I like to call a panic button, which is essentially a button you press to prevent yourself from dying. I reckon that every ship should have a panic button because it keeps you alive when you really need it. So it's a nice one to have. Now, the warp core, you can pretty much use any warp core you want. It's entirely up to your playstyle and preference. I like to use the Delta Alliance trajectory warp core because it has the trajectory jump, which teleports you 5 kilometers, in the direction that you are facing, and it's good for getting out of gravity wells and other things that are holding you down. So that's a pretty good ability to use. Moving on to the consoles now. Consoles are very important. The engineering consoles, sorry, are very important for the strength of the ship. Now, I'm using the Fleet Enhanced Neutronium consoles. Now, you can have whatever modifier you want on these. I have a hit points, a hull healing, and a turn rate one. So I have one of all three. But personally, you can have whatever modifier you want. The main thing we use these consoles for is the damage resistance that we get from them. It's very important because a lot of people think that making a strong ship, it doesn't really matter about hull resistances, it just matters about how much hull or shields you have. And if you have a lot of shields, you really need to have the hull resistance to back it up, because a lot of people complain about having a lot of shield cap. They have plenty of energy in the shields, but they're taking so much hull damage. That's because of the bleed through. But if you have a lot of resistance, that bleed through is drastically minimized, especially when you get your resistance over 50% for everything on the ship. Now, science consoles. Again, these ones are kind of important to have a few things to make it work properly. So, exotic particle field exciter is an excellent console, again because of the resistance you get from it, but also because it improves your exotic damage, and I'll explain why that's important in a minute. As well as it is improving your shield capacity, again another really good thing. But more importantly, it has the res all modifier, which massively improves your resistance again, which is really, really good to have. Now, if you have one of these consoles and you don't have the res all, that's fine. You can have another particle field exciter on here with any modification that you want. But I recommend having the res all, as it's one of the better ones to have and it's very hard to come by. This console slot here, you can put anything you really want in here, it's entirely up to you. I just filled this slot with this console here because it improves my shield capacity and it also improves my exotic damage. So that's up to you. You can pick another console if you want. You might have a universal that you particularly like that you might want to put in there. It's entirely up to you. Same thing applies for this slot, really. I only have this console in here because I needed to fill the space, and it covers some of the stuff that I wanted to do. It increases my maximum shield capacity, and it also increases my crit chance and severity based on my ox power. And my ox power, as you can see, is maxed out. So again, it's a nice console to have, but if you want to put a universal or whatever in that science console slot, you're more than welcome to. It's just entirely up to you, really. Now, Bounty Hunter's Friend is a really, really good one to have because it pairs with the corrosive torpedo, I do believe. Yes, it does. Now, the reason I don't have the three-piece set, which is the mines, is because I'm not bothered about the third set ability. I only want the second set ability from this. Now, the console itself grants a 35.6% to all resistance, all energy resistance, and it also improves your shield healing. Now, some people might be put off by this because it minuses 10% to your weapon power cost. But on this build, because it's a torpedo build, we're not really bothered about our energy weapon damage. So as you can see, my energy weapon levels are right down at the bottom because I don't really care about them. So that console is excellent to have. Luckily, I got it to Mark 14 Ultra Rare, so it really is high up there. We'll just go into info here, and we scroll down a little bit to see the second set. It pluses 32% to our plasma projectile weapon damage, which 4 of my torpedoes are. So that makes a big difference to how much damage our torpedoes do, especially because the torpedoes do plasma burning damage, and we're firing one every half a second from the 90-degree arc on the front of the ship. So it's very, very good because we're constantly dealing plasma damage to the target, which means that whenever that ship is not using hazard emitters, it's receiving permanent hull damage straight through the shield, and that's very important to have on this ship. So that's a very good thing to have on the second set ability from the console and the torpedo. Tactical consoles, because I'm not bothered about the damage that my main weapons do. I've just filled these up with the three universal consoles that you get from each variant of the Vesta ship. Now, it's really good to have all three variants. You can just put one console on if you want to do this build, but I recommend having all three, mainly because of the three-piece set that you get. Now, this console here, the multi-dimensional wave function analysis module, it's a mouthful, this console gives you an ability that allows you to reflect kinetic damage from your ship, and that makes a big difference from the normal feedback pulse that you get, because most people expect you not to be able to reflect torpedoes and your kinetic cutting beam and stuff like that. They only think it's energy weapons, and that always catches people off guard. Now, the three-piece set ability, the second one doesn't really matter, it's just got something to do with your slipstream. The third one gives you an extra ability that makes you completely immune to everything, like all damage, for 10 seconds. Unfortunately, it does take your weapons offline, but nevertheless, it does make your ship immune, and that is excellent. It's what I like to call a panic button. It means you can press this ability and you'll be completely fine for the next 10 seconds. You can get your hull back up and get your shield restored, and you won't take any damage for those 10 seconds that you're doing this, which can essentially save your ship in a PvP match, for example. So that's very good ability to have, which is why I recommend having all three variants of the console. But if you've only got one version of the ship, or you don't want to put all three consoles on, then I still recommend that you keep the multi-dimensional console. I'm not going to say the rest of that, because like I say, it gives you the kinetic feedback. Now we have the binaural gel pack. You can put whatever you want, I guess, in here, but I would recommend putting this console in, at least somewhere on your ship, because it gives you a plus 7% cooldown on reduction to your bridge officer abilities, which really helps you stay in the game. You know, you don't have to heal yourself as often and stuff like that because of this console. And as well, it also improves shield hit points, which is a bonus. Now, hangar pets. Obviously, this is a flight deck, so you can have any flight pets that you want. Personally, I like the Yellowstone runabouts because they have the chromatron torpedoes and the tractor beam, as well as eject tetron plasma, which is three things on one shuttle that will slow the target down or at least stop them altogether. So I like that shuttle quite a bit. But you can put whatever you want there. You might want to put normal runabouts there, maybe some Delta flyers, so you can drain target shields, whatever you want really, it's entirely up to you. So that's basically the main setup for my ship. Obviously a few things you can move around if you wanted to, but this is how I like to build it. It does make it quite strong. I'm just going to go on to the stats real quick. These stats are a little bit lower than what they usually are because I have been modifying my ship recently. So they're usually a little bit higher than what they are at the moment, and just until I get things back to normal. But the main thing we're looking at here is resistance. Now, as you can see, mine are 63 and 65% for the kinetic and all of the energy, which makes a really big difference to how much damage you can take. So if you get hit by a 10k hit directly to your hull, you're only going to receive 35,000 damage, give or take a few. So that's going to make a really big difference to how much damage you take. It's getting these resistances as high as you can. And that's mainly thanks to these engineering consoles. Now my shields are usually higher than this as well. They're at 25,000. I usually have them about 35-40, but I've been modifying a few things in the ship, so that's not quite how it works. But still, 25,000 shields is relatively high. Now the hull is not all that great. You know, it's not even touching 60,000, but again, the hull for me is not such a big thing. I like to have quite a bit of hull, but that's a little bit less than what I would usually want, but nevertheless still pretty good. Bonus defense, that does really not matter for this build. A lot of people think it's important. For this build, you really want to have as lowest bonus defense as you can. Now obviously it's minus 9% because I'm not moving. If I just go at full impulse here, that should go up to 49%. So that's a little bit higher than I would personally like it, but If I'm all honest, let's just drop down to 45, and it's moving again. If I'm honest, it should be lower than that, but the lower you can get that, the better, and I'll explain why later on. Now, that's just the main strength stats of the ship. Um, Firstly, I want to go down to science here. Just show you this. This is my particle generator. It's at 195. Now, again, I usually have it more than that. It's usually sitting at about 225 is where I usually have it set up. And the reason because that is you actually get a less bonus on your exotic damage when the number goes over 250. Now, a lot of people can get it way higher than that number. I've seen ships 400 maybe, and their exotic damage, but it's not really needed because you get such a little bonus after it goes over 250. So you notice a little difference in your exotic damaging abilities. So I would recommend that get it up to about 230 or so, but try not to go over the 250 mark as it's not really needed. So that's basically all the things on the ship that I'm just going to go through for now. Let's move on to my traits. Now, my personal space traits. In here, you really want to have all of the defensive ones that you can. And when I say defensive, what I mean is traits that will make your ship physically stronger. You don't want anything that's going to improve your bonus defense, like elusive, for example, that increases 10% to your defense. You don't want anything that's going to increase that. You just basically want strength, because you want to keep your bonus defense as low as possible. So just look at any strengthening abilities I have. We have the nanite repair matrix that automatically heals your hull when it goes below 50%. I think that's pretty much it. I've actually only got on here. There may be not so many defensive abilities as I thought I had, but nevertheless, you do want a few defensive abilities in here. Maybe living hull you might want on there as well, which is a nice one to have. Grants a nice little extra hull regeneration to your ship in and out of combat. Now, next abilities you've got to have is, this is a must when you're running the torpedo build. It's self-modulating fire. I'm not sure how expensive it is to get on the exchange. When I got it, I picked it up for about 800,000 credits, but I got it quite a while back. So I think the price of this trait has went up quite a bit recently. I'm not quite sure, but it basically means that whenever you crit, you will automatically gain 50% penetration for all of your weapons. And with this build, the torpedoes crit to 1 in 3 chance, how I've worked it out. So if you're firing a torpedo every half a second, every 1.5 seconds you're critting, which means that you will permanently get this ability every 45 seconds, because it can only trigger once every 45 seconds. But every 45 seconds, for those 10 seconds, you're going to be going through their shields, which is a great thing to have. So self-modulating fire, definitely a must on this build here. A few others I've got on. Conversion of energy, just bonus exotic damage, always a good thing. We have astrophysicist, which is again just for the exotic damage, what we want. Another one I've got on here, just further down, these two here, which is particle manipulator and positive feedback loop. Positive feedback loop is a really good ability to have when you have lots of heals on your ship, just like I do here. I've got hazard emitters, I have transfer shield strength, emergency power to shields. I have a lot of healing abilities, so this comes in really handy because it boosts your exotic damage whenever you use a heal, which is very important, and vice versa. Particle manipulator, it improves your critical hit chance for exotic damaging abilities, which is really good for our feedback, because when we get hit by a crit, our feedback crits as well, because it's reflecting the critical. So essentially this improves the damage whenever we are hit by a crit when we have a feedback act. So it's a good ability to have. I would definitely recommend it, but it's up to you, if I'm honest. A couple of these abilities, we have bonus shield penetration for our weapons, kinetic position. We have, Yeah, I think our last one here is Failsafe Scrambler, and this ability I've put on the ship because when you reach 20% or below on your hull, it placates all the foes in the area. Basically means when you're about to die, the enemies can't see you, which is exactly what you want, because that's going to prevent your ship from dying if they can't continuously fire on you. So it comes in really handy to have. Now, all these traits, pardon me, all these traits, um, essentially you can have whatever you think is best. I'm just giving you a few recommendations here. I would recommend having self-modulating fire as well as conversion of energy and positive feedback. They're definitely a must for this build. But you can put whatever you want in there, really. You might find some traits work better than others. This is basically how I've just set it up. But there is a few more in there that you might find better. For example, maximum shield hit points, or even better hull hit points. You know, it could be better, it could be worse. It just depends on what you prefer and how your playstyle is. Now, ground personal traits, that doesn't really matter because we're only focusing on space. Starship traits. Now, in Starship traits, obviously a lot of these you can get from the exchange. Some of them are from your specializations. The others are from starships that you can purchase in the game. Now, the ones I have is the ablative field projector that you get from the Tier 6 Intrepid, which grants 3,000 temporary hit points every 15 seconds. Sorry, for 15 seconds to yourself whenever you use a shield heal. Now, I have 1, 2, 3 shield heals on the ship that I'll be running pretty much continuously. So that will give you a permanent temporary hull hit points on your ship at all times, which means that essentially your actual hull is not taking any damage, and it also keeps your crew alive longer. And crew is quite an important thing. A lot of people seem to just forget about the crew, but if you keep that alive longer, your hull will not go down as fast. It's very important to know. But yeah, you get that from the Tier 6 Intrepid. If you've got it, great. If not, don't worry about it. There's plenty more traits to get out there that you can fit on this ship. I'll get back to Pedal to the Metal in a minute. Immense Strategy, kind of a good one to have. It's basically the same as positive feedback loop, just a little bit less of a bonus, but it's essentially the same ability. So that's nice to have. It's going to be improving your shield heals and your hull heals, and it's also going to it's only going to be improving your shield heals, not hull, but it's also going to be improving your exotic, which again very important to have. So next one, look here, is Desperate Repairs. Now this is an excellent ability to have. If you own the Tier 6 Guardian on the Federation side, this is a must-have on your ship. When you're critically hit 3 times, it gives you an extra 5,000 shields and 25,000 hull, which is a massive heal to have in your ship, especially on the hull. That's almost half of my hull there, about 45%. Now, this only happens every 60 seconds, but a minute is a long time in combat. Sorry, it's a short time in combat. So, if you're getting healed 25,000 every minute, especially when you're in a PvP, you get hit quite a lot by critical damaging enemies, then you're going to be getting this healed quite often, and it's excellent. It keeps you alive a lot longer. Now, for the fourth one, if you've unlocked the fifth one, then great. I haven't actually done it yet because I haven't saved up enough resources to purchase it. But for the time being, we'll just leave the fifth one out. But if you have got the fifth one, feel free to put anything you want in there. It's entirely up to you. For the third ability, or should I say the fourth, depending on where you're looking at that, I just put improved pedal to the metal because it improves all your damage. So when you're moving about, after 20 seconds, I do believe, you will get an extra 20% to all of your damage, and that includes everything that you do, from energy weapons, torpedoes, to any exotic damage abilities, everything that you do that improves. So it's a handy one to have. I've just put it on just to fill the space, because the other ones I've got, I didn't really prefer them. Maybe the best defense is a good one to have. It improves your healing with your attack patterns. If you need the extra strength, I would probably recommend this one, but that's entirely up to you. possibly command frequency that you get from the specialization. That's also a handy one to have. Now, moving on to space reputation. Now, the fifth ability in here, you may put whatever you want. I've just put the nanoprobe feedback because I needed to build the space. But you can put whatever you want in the fifth slot. That's if you've unlocked it. For the other four, you have to have, well, you don't have to have, but I would definitely recommend this, is having plus 10 to all to all damage bonus resistance. So that's helping the resistance of your ship even more. So it's a nice one to have. Active hull hardening is a very good ability when you team it up with all the other traits and stuff that I've been along with that keep you alive. Because after 75% hull, the more hull you lose, the more damage resistance you get. So that's going to keep you alive longer, especially when you're about to die. You're going to become a much harder target to kill, which is excellent, especially for people that are doing a high amount of damage over time rather than critting you, you know? So that's a very, very handy one to have. The other one I've got on here is destabilizing phaser rate. Now, this ability, I guess you could change it out to something else if you wanted. You get this from the reputation tree, the Conian side, and when you're damaged, you receive immunity to all damage for 3 seconds. Now, 3 seconds isn't a lot, but that's 3 seconds where they can't damage you, and it comes in really, really handy, especially with your feedback when you've got people doing a lot of damage to you, and this can save you from that damage for 3 seconds. And it triggers every minute. So essentially every minute, if you're constantly taking damage, you're going to have this immunity, which is really, really good. It does keep you alive longer, and it's a bonus, you know? It's a really good thing to have. So I would recommend that, but again, if you want to change it out for something else, maybe like fortified hull, extra hull hit points, it's all good, you know? And last one is auxiliary power configuration. Now with this build, it's definitely a must. If you have the bonus auxiliary power, which I have 125, which is capped out, this is going to make a very big difference to your ship. It improves all of the damage resistance that you have by 25. It also improves your maximum hull and shield capacity by 6.2%, which is a little bit extra, and it all helps, you know, it all helps. So it's a very good one to have indeed. Now, that's my space reputation. Personally, you might find something that works better in these list of 4 or 5 if you've unlocked it. But for me, in this build, that's definitely the way I would go. Now, ground reputation, doesn't really matter. Active reputation, you can put whatever you want in here. If you've unlocked the space ones, great. With this build, though, I would use them certain ways. The refractoring Tetron Cascade, that doesn't really matter. Just a damaging ability, essentially, so don't worry too much about that. The Quantum Singularity, now this ability is quite clever if you time it right, because it pluses 100 to your science stat for 8 seconds, but after 3 seconds your ship will cloak. So for those 3 seconds that you have when you activate this ability, that's plusing 100 to all of your science stats, which means that all of your exotic damaging abilities will be much more damaging, essentially, for those 3 seconds. So if you activate your feedback, you'll see it has 15 seconds how long it lasts. See it here. It's got 10, 9, 8, 7. So when you reach the 3 marker, you want to hit your cloak. In those 3 seconds, your feedback is going to be amplified. And even though you're turning invisible straight after, any damage that you receive is going to be much better for those 3 seconds. So it's nice to time that right, especially if you're trying to finish an enemy off. So it's a good one to know. Obviously, your ship does cloak, and you can still fire whilst cloaked, which is brilliant. So the cloak comes in handy for when you need to get out of the situation. I know a lot of people who use the ability like that, so I'm sure you'll probably already know that. Let's see. The sensor interference platform. Now, I don't use this very often, but I do quite like it. It comes in handy when you need to get out of the situation, and the reason for that is because when you deploy a platform, anyone attacking you gets minus 75% for all outgoing damage, which means less damage to you and you can recover faster. But in a situation where you're fighting the computer, when you're fighting NPCs, you don't want to be deploying this when you have your feedback active, because it's going to pull the damage off your ship and onto the platform, and you want to be amplifying as much feedback as you can to all available targets. So you want to be getting shot as much as possible, essentially, and that's the reason why you want as least bonus defense as you can, because you don't want the enemy to miss your ship. You want the ship to be shot as much as possible. That's why we have to make it so strong, and that's why the feedback is so much better, because it's being shot more often. So just very careful with that one. Only use it when really needed, or at least when your feedback is not active. So moving on to specializations. Not really much to say about this. You just want to fill in the whole tree when you can, when you get your points off leveling up, and that's pretty much it really. I haven't filled them all in yet. I've got a couple of ground ones to do. I filled in all the space traits pretty much, but there's still some ground ones to do in there. You want your pilot to be your primary specialization and your command officer to be your secondary. The command officer is really good because it amplifies your torpedo's effectiveness by draining shields and also exploit the target, which is really, really handy. So I would recommend using this one as well as the pilot, because the pilot gives you an extra few abilities. It also gives you the barrel roll, which gives you immunity for 4 seconds, as well as giving you the automatic shield diversion and placating all fours as well, so this can get you out of trouble when necessary. So the pilot is definitely the one you want to have as primary for this build. Now, moving on to the last thing is the skills. Now, the skills, there's a lot to go through, but I'll try and cover it as much as I can. Ground abilities, they don't really matter, just you want to fill those in to however your playstyle is in the ground, but I'm not focusing on the ground today, so I'm not going to bother going through all this. I just picked whatever I wanted really. We'll start off with tactical. Now, if you're running a torpedo build, this is definitely how I would spec it. But if you're running energy weapons on this build, then you might want to switch it up a little bit. But it's entirely up to you, I guess. But for torpedoes, I would definitely run it this way. Now, we want to have 9 points in weapons training, projectile weapons, and energy weapon specialization. Sorry, projectile weapon specialization. I got it wrong there. It's all the projectile ones in the mob. Energy weapons. Here, I put 9 points in here, but I don't think you really need it. I only put the 9 points in there because I had spare points to spend. So it's up to you if you want to fill that up. I personally, I wouldn't. I would probably spend it somewhere else. Same with the attack patterns. There's only 9 in there because I had to fill it up. But again, you can put it somewhere else if you want to. It's up to you. Threat control, you definitely want that to be at 9, because that improves your resistance, and you want to be taking all of the threat that you can, so you can keep it off your tactical teammates, and also your feedback will be more efficient because of this. You'll be attacking more targets. Now, moving on to engineering, you want to focus as much as you can on physical strength of your hull in the engineering section. So, Starship hull repair, Starship armor reinforcements, and Starship hull plating, as well as structural integrity, should all have 9 points. So this will improve how much your hull is repaired, how many hit points you have, as well as resistance to both energy and kinetic. Now, for the other points in here, I recommend at least having 3 to 6 in warp-core efficiency and potential, because this is going to boost all your power levels nicely. As you can see, my shields are supposed to be at 55, they're actually at 90. My ox is at 125. I didn't really focus much on the engines, but that's another plus 13 there. And the weapons have an extra 16. Now, weapon power levels don't really matter because we're only running 2 energy weapons on the ship, so it's kind of pointless really when you're running all torpedoes. But if you are running energy weapons, I suggest that you mix it up a little bit on the power levels to get a little bit more weapon power, but you want to try and maintain as much ox power as you can for this build. Now, impulse thrusters, you can have probably 3 to 6. I wouldn't recommend any more than 6 because that's going to boost your bonus defense too much, and we don't want that. Starship subsystem repair, it's entirely up to you. You can have as many points in there as you want. I recommend 6 to 9 in Starship batteries, because that improves this battery here, which is the exotic particle flood, which improves all of your exotic abilities for 18.4 seconds or more or less, depending on how many points you have in Starship batteries. But that makes a big difference. So I recommend 6 to 9 in Starship batteries. Kind of a nice thing to have. I put a little bit in auxiliary performance just so I could get a bit of more of a boost on my ox power level. I wouldn't say that you would need any points in here with the way the ship's backed up, but I suggest that you could put a few in there, maybe 1 or 2. I wouldn't say any more than 3. Electroplasma systems, all it does is improve your power transfer rate. We're not really moving power around quite a bit on this build, so again, it doesn't really matter what you put in there, maybe a few points, it's entirely up to you. And that's pretty much it for the engineering section. So moving on to science now. First of all, gotta have 9 points in Starship particle generators. It's going to make such a big difference if you do. You also want 9 points in Starship shield systems and emitters, because that's all about strength to your ship, so you need to have 9 in all those 3 there. So very good to have. I would definitely recommend having 9 there. Power insulators, gravitron generators, and inertial dampeners. You can have anywhere from 3 to 6 points in those 3. I definitely recommend 3 or more in inertial dampeners, as it's going to make you harder to be stopped. So that's probably a good one. I've only got 3 in there. I would probably put 6 in myself, but I would need the respec for that. Starship sensors. I've only got 3 points in here because I don't fight a lot of cloaking enemies. But with this build, you don't really need to see a cloaked ship as such. So you're only going to be using your feedback when you actually see them. So you can put some more points in sensors 1, 3, maybe 6 if you wanted. That way, if you prefer to actually see the cloaked ship earlier on, if you want, it's up to you. But I would probably say that you could put 6 in there if you have the space to do so. Gravitron generators. If you're running a gravity well, I would definitely say you need 3 or more in there. If you're not going to run a gravity well, then I wouldn't bother with that. It doesn't really matter because all it affects is your tractor beams and stuff like that, and in your gravity wells. But tractor beams pretty much stop the target anyway, especially when it comes to the NPCs, as well as a gravity well having plenty of pull. As standard, it doesn't really need the extra points, but it's up to you. And that's pretty much it. Power insulators, again, I just filled the space there. It's up to you how many points you want in. It's the same with flow capacitors as well. I wouldn't bother with Starship subspace decomplifier, a long word, and countermeasure systems, because again, you don't really need it in here for this type of build. And that's pretty much it. I think I've covered everything in my skills. Like I say, a few things you can move around to suit your preference, but a few things are very important. You want maximum hull strength, as much kinetic damage as you can do, and as much shields and exotic as you can get on the skill tree. It's very important to making this build work correctly. So, I think I've pretty much covered everything here. Let's just go over the duty officers just a minute. Now, if you've unlocked this 6th slot here, that's fantastic. If not, don't worry about it. First of all, you want to have 2 abilities here. The first one is a chance to reduce the time to recharge torpedoes. Now, a purple would be great. I recommend getting purples for everything here. But if you can't, then don't worry about it. A blue will probably satisfy, but when you get time in the credits, I would recommend upgrading to a purple. You only want 1 of these officers, regardless of what color they are. So you want to have a chance to reduce the torpedo recharge time. If you have 1 of these on, it allows to keep the timers on all of your torpedoes here circling every half a second, so you always get a torpedo firing as long as you've got one of these purples on. Chance to increase kinetic damage, I just put that on because it was a new bridge officer and I quite liked it. It doesn't do all that much, but it does have a 20% chance to +5 kinetic damage for your torpedoes, and it can stack 3 times, so you could have up to 15% extra kinetic damage from your torpedoes once every 5 times you fire a torpedo, so it's still pretty good. Now, these 3 here, you can have 3 of this type of officer, which is it adds a resistance debuff to your feedback pulse. Now, when you activate your feedback pulse, you have a 12% chance to lower the damage resistance of anyone attacking you by 15 for 8 seconds. Now, I've got 3 of these, and I'm pretty sure they do stack. So, whenever you activate your feedback pulse, you do have a chance to lower their damage resistance, which is going to make the feedback pulse more effective against the target. So that's very, very good to have. You definitely want 3 of these. Try and make purple if you can. If not, blues will definitely suffice still. But I would recommend getting purples when you can, when you've got the credits to do so. For the 6th slot, if you've unlocked it, I've just put in a chance to create an aftershock of your gravity well. So that means you can have like 2 or more gravity wells. It has a chance to make another one. Personally, you can put anything you prefer in there. Maybe an ability that increases your power levels when you use transfer to whatever power, like transfer to shields or weapons or whatever. It'll definitely make it better. Sorry, emergency power to shields or weapons or ox or whatever. You can have a duty officer in there that improves that those abilities, so it might improve your power levels. It just depends on whatever you prefer, but the 6th slot is entirely up to you. I've just put that in there for the time being. I think I've pretty much covered everything I can. I think I forgot one thing, which was my secondary deflector. The secondary deflector, I guess, is entirely up to you what you want to put in there. You get different types. Personally, I would prefer one that made my ship stronger. I do actually have one, but I don't tend to use it because I prefer the ability that this one has, because it deals radiation damage to the shields whenever you use certain abilities, which you can see listed there. And I use this because I have a gravity well and I have a tractor beam. So that's 2 abilities I'm going to be using pretty much all the time whenever I can. That will grant me that extra 6,500 radiation damage, half of it going through the shield. So that's 3,500 damage right there after 4 seconds of using this ability. So it comes in handy. It's extra damage to the shield, which is exactly what we want. As well as it improving exotic again, and as well as shield healing. So it's a good one to have. Again, Mark 14 versions of these very rare, ultra rare, or even epic are quite expensive to buy. I would probably recommend crafting it, or if you don't have the correct crafting level, to go and get someone to craft it for you. You might have a fleet mate or a friend or whatever who plays this game that will be able to help you out with that. But yeah, that's probably the one I would recommend. But again, it's entirely up to you. You might prefer a different playstyle. You might want one that makes your ship stronger. By all means, get that secondary deflector. And that's pretty much it. I think I've covered everything. Nothing more that I can think of. I will be making another video to show you the playstyle of the ship. Obviously, because I've just listed all the stuff the ship has and why it does. But I will be making a video that will show off how I fly the ship, and more importantly, the way that this build should be used. Obviously, you can't just transfer a build to a new player, because every player has their own playstyle, and you have to build a ship according to their playstyle, and if you don't get it right, it doesn't quite work. So obviously, if you did want to copy this build completely, you might want to change a few things. I wouldn't do it exactly how it is, because it might not work correctly for you. You might want to modify a few things just to make it work better for your current playstyle. Now, one thing I didn't go over was my bridge officer abilities, I just remembered. Let's go to stations here. Now, we have we don't have a lot of room for abilities on this ship. I've had to make do with what I have. Essentially, you want to have 7 science, 3 tactical, and 2 engineering. Now, on the engineering, you want to have either emergency part of shield 1 or 2, or an engineering team 1 or 2, either which way around you want. It's up to you if you want more shields or more hull. Personally, I like to have more shields and more hull, but it's entirely up to you. On a tactical, we want to have computer spread 1 and tactical team 1, and we want to have attack pattern delta or beta. It's entirely up to you which one you want, because it works better essentially. So take your pick on which one you want. Personally, I prefer delta, but it's entirely up to you. On the science, if I'm using the Lieutenant Commander Universal, the science slot ordered in there. In here we want to have Science Team 1, Polarized Hull 2, and Gravity Well 1. Now, in the Gravity Well slot, you may want to put something else, perhaps a Baromatrix, Tractor Beam, Tachyon Beam, whatever you want. But personally, I prefer the Gravity Well because it makes my computer spread more efficient. So I've chosen the Gravity Well for the Lieutenant Commander slot. In the Commander slot for the Science, we want to have, you can have any ability you want in the Mark 1 slot, Ensign. I've just put a Tractor Beam in there because I like to slow my targets more. So a Tractor Beam, you might want to put a Tachyon Beam in there maybe, it's up to you. Maybe a Scramble Sensors or something like that. You want to have Hazard Emitters 2 and Transfer Shield Strength 3. Again, Hazard Emitters 2 and Transfer Shield Strength 3, you can swap those round to have Hazard Emitters 3 and Transfer Shield Strength 2, depending if you want more hull or shield healing. It's up to you, but I suggest if you do switch these abilities around, that you match them up correctly with the engineering ones. So if you're doing less hull healing and more shield healing, then have less on the engineering as well. So you want engineering team 1 Hazard Emitters 2, and you want emergency pilot shields 2 and transfer shields strength 3, so they match up, so you get a bigger bonus to the shields and you don't just even the playing field out again. So I would recommend matching those up if you do. Last ability, and the most important for this build, is Feedback Pulse 3. Now Feedback Pulse 3 you've got to have on here. The build wouldn't work without it. It'd be very, very pointless, so Feedback Pulse 3 is a must. Got to have that ability on there. And that pretty much covers the stations. Like I say, a few things you can swap around if you want, but some of them are vital. You definitely want to have these 2 abilities here, Hazard Emitters and Transfer Shield Strength, because they will boost your healing. And like I say, Feedback Plus 3 is a must for this build. Now, I'll just show you my tray here a minute. I've got my ability set out how I like it. You might want to put the extra trays on if you prefer it a different way, but it's entirely up to you. You might want to put on the Bridge Officer Crew slot if you prefer to have it like this, but again, it's up to you, playstyle. I like to have all my abilities in 2 big trays. That's just the way I like it. Let's just get rid of that. So let's go over my abilities here. I have mine set up to kind of make it ease of access in a way. Now, a few of these abilities I'm just going to go over. Obviously, everyone knows, well, most people will know the Science Team has the emitters, the attack patterns, and whatnot. They're just your standard abilities and such. Now, here's the Feedback Pulse 3, and as you can see, it's doing 1.1 incoming energy damage back at the target for 15 seconds. Now, that number does increase when you're in combat because of the traits and such that we have on the ship. That will go up to almost 1.9. 1.8, 1.9 is usually where it sits when I'm in combat. And that number translates into percentage. Now, 1.1 is 110%. 1.8 is obviously 180%. And if you match that up, a 10,000 damage hit to your ship is 18,000 damage back at the attacker. Now, if we exclude all the extra stuff along with the feedback pulse and just take in just the base feedback pulse on its own, 10,000 damage translates to 18,000 damage, which is then halved into 9,000 damage. So that's 9,000 damage straight through the shield onto the hull. So that's quite a lot of damage that ability does when it's amped up. The other ability I've got is this multi-dimensional graviton shield that I mentioned at the start of the video. This one improves, this one reflects kinetic damage back to the attacker. Unfortunately, it only lasts for 20 seconds and has a 2-minute cooldown. But for those 20 seconds, you are able to reflect any form of kinetic damage back to the attacker. And kinetic energy is not dampened like energy weapons are by your shields. So what that means is when the kinetic damage hits, you actually get the raw damage that is reflected. And energy weapons, you do not get the raw damage that is reflected. So that ability makes a massive difference. Like I say, it does only have a 2-minute cooldown, but it does a lot of damage, and a lot of people will not be expecting you to reflect their torpedoes. I've caught a lot of people off guard with that ability. It's very, very good to have, and I definitely recommend it on this ship. Obviously, it comes from the console that I mentioned earlier in the video, the 3-piece set, but you only need to have the one console if you just want this ability and nothing else. The number is at 1.5, just sitting in space here, but that will go up to 3, essentially, which translates to 300%. Now, torpedoes do a lot more damage than energy weapons, typically in crits. If you get hit by a 40k critical, that's 120,000 back at the enemy. You half that, that's 60,000 damage. And if you take into account the resistance on the ship, say for example, it's 50% resistance to kinetic, that's still 30,000 damage you're doing off one torpedo spread on your ship. So when you control those numbers up, you're essentially reflecting a massive amount of kinetic damage, more than what they're actually hitting you with back at the target. And it makes this ability very, very powerful. And if you time it right with a big torpedo spread coming towards your ship, or maybe a high yield, you will do some serious damage with that ability. It's good practice to use the feedback +3 and multi-dimensional graviton shield at the same time, because that way you'll be reflecting both energy and kinetic and be dealing a hell of a lot more damage, to say the least. Other abilities I'm going to go through here. The Pheromone Field, that's a very good ability to have. It essentially has the emitters and transfer shield strength blended into one. And it also fires it out in a 3k radius around your ship, so you can heal other team players. So it comes in really handy to have, as well as the Discharge Repair Nanite, which comes from the space set I have on this ship, which is the Solid Defense set. Now, again, this will spread and cover many targets, as you can see, it bounced off the USS Pegasus there, and it will heal the hull of any allies, including yourself. It's a nice ability to have when you get out of a pinch, because it heals almost 20,000 points of your hull, which is about a third of my total hull on this ship. The last ability I have, now this ability you won't get unless you have all 3 consoles on your ship. Now this ability is the quantum focused shield bubble, which I mentioned earlier in this video, and this ability will basically make your ship immune completely to all damage for the next 10 seconds, and I like to call it a panic button. The reason I call it a panic button is because a lot of people, when they receive a massive amount of damage in a PvP, they tend to rapidly start hitting all of their buffs and stuff like that, trying to get their shields back up and everything, and it causes confusion in the player. And in me, I don't want to be doing that. I don't want to be hitting all my heals, trying to get my hull back up, trying to restore my shields. I just want to be able to click one button and make myself immune, and that's what that does. That's a panic button. So you just press that and you're safe for the next 10 seconds. There's a couple of more abilities that are, the rock and roll does a similar thing. For the next 4 seconds you will be immune as well. That's basically the same idea. Obviously this one has 6 more seconds than that one does. However, if you combine those two abilities together, so you fire the rock and roll and then the shield straight after, that'll grant you 14 seconds of not being able to be killed. So, excellent, really. Let's see. That's pretty much all my abilities. I have my trajectory jump that is from my warp core. It's just nice to have. It gets you out of a pinch. Just got myself into the solar system there. It does get you out of problems if you're stuck in a gravity well or something like that. It definitely comes in handy. So it's a nice one to have. And that's pretty much it. I think I might have missed something. I hope I haven't. But I think I have covered everything in this video. I will be making a video, like I said earlier on, that will show my playstyle and the way that the ship works in actual combat in both PvE and PvP. I do have a few willing volunteers that are willing to do a PvP with me. There's not a lot of people that do it anymore because they've seen me fight and they know that the ship is really hard to defeat. Now, some of you watching this video, you might not think that it's really powerful or anything like that. But believe me, it is. You will see in the next video that it is quite a damaging ship and it's very strong as well. Passing numbers on this ship, it only does about 17 to 18,000 DPS in infected space. Unfortunately, I can't really get it any higher than that with this build. I would probably say if you tweak the ship a little bit yourselves, you might find that you can get it over 20,000 DPS. Anyone who's looking for a lot of DPS, this is not built for you. But if you want to be tanky and you want to catch people off guard with feedback, this is definitely built for you. It's definitely what I would advise you do if you're looking to build a ship like that. But I hope you enjoyed the video. I pretty much went over everything I can. I can't think of anything else. I hope I covered everything. If I haven't, feel free to leave a comment below and I will reply to you as soon as I can on whatever your question may be. Hit a like if you enjoyed this video, if you found it informative, and I shall see you in the next one.
Coming on to you like a tide upon the sand.